The day started out so normal in the city of Belmonte. They'd been expecting some rainstorms in the afternoon, but this was a whole new level of crazy. The skies began darkening and all the electric equipment in the city began going nuts. Lightning struck the ground and beams of purple light appeared from the sky and began moving in seemingly random patterns, sometimes roaming over people as well, though nothing seemed to happen, at least at first. A university student everyone knew as Nicole had been working in his school's computer lab when everything started going nuts, and didn't have time to react when one of the purple lights ran over the school and he vanished in the beam, seemingly vaporized, with his classmates freaking out. We then cut to a beautiful blue clear sky and a hole opening up inside it as Nicole was dropped from the hole and flew down, crashing onto a hay pile looking confused, and after making sure he wasn't dreaming or dead, he then tried to get up and checked himself for injuries, finding that he's alright. After getting up from the pile and brushing himself off, he looked around. It was clear he wasn't anywhere he'd ever been before, questioning where exactly he was allowed to no one in particular. As if in answering, a voice spoke up, telling him that he's in Dusty Poco Village. Turning, he looked surprised, seeing a small bear-like creature wearing a blue cap backwards on their head. Tilting his head, Nicole asked where that was exactly, and the little bear creature told him that they're in the digital world, and says that for a human, he didn't seem scared of him, asking if he wasn't freaking out or anything like what he was taught people would do. Shrugging, our protagonist told them that he's used to crazy. Digital monsters? Sure, why not? He then introduced himself as Nicole and asked what their name was, and the tiny bear told him that his name was Bearmon, and he could show them around town if they liked. Nodding, Nicole told them to lead the way. Maybe he could find a way to figure out what's going on. The little Bearmon began showing him around the village, but it looked like the whole place was wrecked. After asking what happened, the little Bearmon told him that the war between Yggdrasil's royal knights and the Mao army led by the demon lords have caused problems for all of their world, while looking saddened, leading to a graveyard where there was a stone with a carving of a little creature in kendo armor on it. They told him that they lost their best friend because he tried to help protect the village. Kneeling down beside Bearmon, he gently patted their head with an understanding look, telling them that he knew how they felt. When he was about the same size as Bearmon, he'd lost his best friend, who was shot by an intruder while trying to protect his mom. Lifting up the little Bearmon, he told them that the pain never really goes away, but with time, things will start to get easier to handle. Bearmon thanked him for being so kind, saying that he wished the Digimon that attacked the village could be as kind as he was. Smiling, he then sat down Bearmon before hearing a loud explosion off in the distance and began racing towards where they were coming from, seeing 3 large mushrooms attacking people by throwing smaller mushrooms that exploded upon impact while laughing about it. Nicole called out to them to stop while grabbing one of them by the wrist, telling them that's enough. Jerking away their arm, they demanded to know who the hell he thought he was, grabbing them like that. They were the Mushroomon brothers, and they would do as they pleased, or they'd have to take it up with the Mao army, before throwing mushrooms at him, which he moved out of the way to avoid. Bearmon called out for them to please stop while running towards the group because he didn't want to lose another friend. Laughing, the Mushroomon brothers then said that's cute and redirected their attacks at Bearmon, but Nicole then jumped into the path with his arms crossed, taking the explosions, and when the dust cleared, he had burns on his arms and was bleeding with his shirt and pants torn. The Mushroomon looked surprised by the fact that he was still standing. While they were distracted, he then ran forwards and punched one of them in the face, knocking them back as a strange energy began to appear from Nicole's fist. Bearmon looked surprised and called out that was the blaze of Digivolution, making our protagonist look at his fist confused. He'd spoken the word Digivolution, confused, and it was like something told him what to do. He then called out Digivolution as the energies then began to consume his body, and he changed into a Digimon in armored jeans and golden blonde hair, along with emerald green eyes, calling himself Tali Shadamon. Everyone looked surprised that this human could become a Digimon, Shadamon, and he then cracked his knuckles asking if they were ready for this. The Mushroomon then started pelting at Tali Shadamon with their mushroom bombs repeatedly over and over again, laughing as Bearmon cried out for them to stop, and once they did, Nicole was nowhere to be seen, and they all began laughing as the little bear-like Digimon was too stunned to speak, though that was short-lived, as a shadow on the ground moved to behind the Mushroomon, and Tali Shadamon then rose up out of the ground, clearing his throat, asking if they were looking for someone. The Mushroomon jumped back, caught by surprise, as Tali Shadamon called out Enigma Pulse, striking the enemy with a strange colored energy that appeared around his hands and unleashed an attack that caused the Mushroomon to break down into bits of dust particles that were absorbed by Tali Shadamon. He then smirked, cracking his knuckles, saying that wasn't much of a fight. Bearmon ran to Tali Shadamon and hugged them, thanking him for saving them and getting rid of the Mushroomon. Now they could finally get to the village orchards, and Dusty Poco could get better and rebuild. Smiling, they reverted to human and patted their heads, saying they're welcome. He was happy to help. Cutting back to the human world, we see those lights taking 2 more individuals, and then the sky opening up as they too fell, crashing down onto Nicole, who looked confused, asking them to get off of him. Apologizing, they stood up, asking what happened, so he told the other 2 what exactly he did know, confusing them more, with a small pink bird telling them that the village elder wants to see them. Nodding, Nicole began to follow, and since he was the only other perceived human around them, the other 2 decided to stick close. One of them was a guy who introduced himself as Lucas, and the other was a girl calling herself Kat. Nicole introduced himself and Bearmon, with the 4 of them following the pink bird Digimon called Piomon to a Digimon that kinda looks like an old woman. The woman then introduced herself as Babamon, and she thanked them for their help and told them that they should hold a celebration for the Digidestined that saved the village from the Mushroomon. Kat then asked what a Digidestined was, and Babamon told them that according to legend, humans would appear from another world to save the digital world, and they are called the Digidestined.